And welcome to the P114 Filmmakers podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Knight, and in addition to me, we also have three other hosts today, beginning with...
I'm Randall.
Cat Hans.
Tyler.
And we're here to talk about all things film related. So today we got a sort of special topic. Actually, me and Randall have been trying to get this going all last semester, and it never did happen, right? We did, though, the first podcast we did here was actually Randall's podcast, and we did do sort of a comprehensive Indiana Jones episode way back when, about a year and a half ago now, or something like that. Year or so ago, yeah. But it's always good to kind of revisit it. Now we have the power of video, so there is that. I guess to start us off, I didn't know anything about Indiana Jones or anything like that until the movie kind of went out, and I knew because my sister really loved Harrison Ford, so she was allowed to go to the movie, but my parents decided not to let me go, which was a big mistake. I've never forgiven them for that. But I was so fascinated by it, and I had a lot of books about movies that I wasn't allowed to go see, but I had books on Indiana Jones with all these pictures from the movie, so I would just sit and stare at that. I had it on I had the little record, back when I was a kid, we'd have these storybook records, so you'd put the record on and you'd look at the pages while it basically told you a very condensed kind of Cliff Notes version of the story, so that was what I was kind of used to, and I finally got to see it a year later on HBO, I think, and it was pretty soon they released it. You would think years would go by before they'd release something on HBO, but it was within a year or so when that came out. Finally got to see it, blew my mind. I was just loved it. And I've seen every movie, and I've seen the series. What is it? Indiana Jones Chronicles, I think. Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which I also liked a lot. But let me kind of hear around the room when you guys first discovered it.
Well, I saw it when it was out in theater. When it first came out in theater, I was
lucky,
young, and it was Harrison Ford had just come off of The Empire Strikes Back right before then. Right. Maybe around the same time.
I think so, yeah.
And so Harrison Ford was big.
Yeah.
So Han Solo was. Of course, I'm wearing a Star Wars T-shirt now, so I saw Star Wars, from the beginning, or when it was in theaters, and Empire Strikes Back and everything like that. So Harrison Ford was big. So hey, he's in another movie. Let's go watch it, whatever. And so we went to see it, and I was probably too young to see it when
right.
It come right out to it.
Right.
At the time, maybe I don't know. It didn't really bother me. Nothing really scared
no.
me. I mean, it's got more disgusting stuff in the second one than it does really the first one.
Yeah.
But anyway, and that's when I went to see it, and of course I went to see all the rest of them too. I saw Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, the show. It was good to a point. They had episodes with him being a little kid, and then him switching over to him being more of a teenager or
right.
late 20s or early 20s type thing.
Right.
And those were better episodes than the one when he was a kid. So
yeah, I
because I think they could only do so much with him being a kid or
sure.
whatever. So that was interesting, and but yeah, that's where I've been a fan ever since. It's been ups and downs.
Oh yeah, for sure. How about you, Kat?
Well, back before streaming services were a huge thing, we would go to the library every Friday, and my mom talked us. You can only get 5 movies.
Right.
And so Mom talked us into getting the 3 Indiana Jones movies. And
okay.
We took them home and immediately started binge watching them.
Yeah. And so, obviously, I would imagine you like Indiana Jones.
I loved it. And the practical effects were what I loved the most. That's what I loved the most about movies made in the 80s.
Yeah.
Is I have so much respect for the practical effects.
Yeah, and it's it's really there. That's the thing, you can really tell, even today, as nice as CGI is and stuff like that, you can still kind of say, hey, that's a painting of a smoke cloud instead of a smoke cloud. Yeah, okay. How about you, Todd?
All right, so my dad, he has a bunch of DVDs that he collected in his shelf, and I was never allowed to touch them when I was young because they were not appropriate.
Right.
Well, finally, my mom was like, well, can show me Indiana Jones. And I was like, what's that? They put it in, I watched it, and I remember towards the end, I never got to see those things come out because I had to close my eyes every time. and I was not allowed to peek. And I never did because I was a good kid. But I would hear them, and I'd be like, oh, that sounds terrifying, you know? And I wasn't allowed to see them melt the faces.
Right.
And then, you know, I'd take my eyes off, and then everyone's dead. I'm like, so, you know, it happened so many times, and then I finally watched it older, you know, and ended up seeing it, and was like, wow, it was kind of like, I imagined a lot scarier than I saw, but I was still blown away with the effects and all that. Yeah. But I love the movie because I like movies that keep going, and keep pushing, and just the car, where he's on the car with the whip, you know, and he's dragging him on the road, you know?
Right.
That's all him doing that. It's not fake or anything, you know, like green screens or anything.
Yeah.
And it was cool, and I really enjoyed it, and like how it kept going. But yeah, after that I became a fan. And do we want to talk about the other ones, or?
Yeah. We'll just keep going. Yeah. It's just
okay.
Not so formal, you know.
I just want to ask one question to both of y'all. How old were y'all when y'all saw them? I mean, I'm asking because I'll tell you after I ask. Have you?
I think I was 11 or 12.
Okay.
How old were you?
If she was like 11 or 12, then I would have been like maybe 13 or 14.
Okay. The reason why I ask is I just want to because I had a friend who has 2 boys, and he set them down and watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, put on Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they were probably close to my age when I first saw Raiders of the Lost Ark. One was a little younger than that, but and they just were bored to tears.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I want to say it was either 10 or 12 or 13.
And that's why I'm just that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Just like different age ranges maybe make a difference or whatever.
I was 7 when it came out, so I can see why my parents didn't want me to go. But I saw it like a year later. I was 8, and I saw the faces melting. Me and all the other kids my age laughed out loud when we saw that. We thought it was thrilling, you know.
I saw Temple of Doom first,
Oh,
and that was
okay.
freaky. That's all sorts of freaky.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It is.
it's
Yeah.
got some freaky
It's freaky. Yeah, it might be the darkest of all 4.
I'd love to tell you guys what I think about that.
Yeah.
We'll get to it.
I saw that one in the theater and absolutely loved it. I didn't get to see the first one, so I did get to see that, and I was probably, maybe, let's see, Temple of Doom was 84. I was 10 years old. and it was a lot of fun, you know. Did you see it in the theater too?
I saw 8 Raiders in the theater. I saw all of them in the theater.
So you're probably a year older than me, you know.
Yeah, so I was 8 years old when I saw it. When I saw Raiders.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I loved it. And I was just like, I was blown away by it from the beginning.
Yeah, that still might be my favorite out of all of them. Is the first one.
Raiders.
Sure. Yeah.
So after watching them both, I think it's Last Crusade for me.
Yeah. I see why I love Last Crusade too. That's got a nice story.
It's close.
Yeah.
It's not like it's very close.
Yeah, they can kind of go more for the heartstrings in that one because you got the father-son aspect.
That's what gets to me. It's the father and son,
kid.
and the tank sequence.
Oh, that's a great sequence.
I remember seeing that when I was young. I was like, what the hell is this?
I like the
what?
I like the no tickets part.
Yeah, no ticket. Like Sean Connery. No one else could have played his dad better. I think. Like Junior. Yeah. You know, like it's just funny.
It's interesting to look at, like looking at Lucas and Spielberg. You know, they grew up when they were little kids. There were these things that they saw called cliffhangers, and it was like these little short, like actiony kind of short films and stuff. They're showing Flash Gordon, which was kind of similar, but they had a lot of these sort of cowboy and western ones and some other types of genres, but they're cliffhangers. And they called them cliffhangers because they'd always end with somebody in all this trouble. Tune in again next week to see if they live or die. Main character, they're probably going to live, but you know.
Yeah, it'd be on like Saturday mornings. You could go to a movie theater and watch them in
That's
black and
right.
white or whatever type of thing. Yeah.
And my dad, too, he was born in 1930. He grew up watching those as well. And so they were kind of hopped up on that. It was their early childhood, early developmental stuff inspired by those kind of stories. And so it was right after, I believe, Star Wars was released, and I think Lucas wanted to kind of chill in Hawaii for a little bit, and Spielberg went too, and I think it was Star Wars and not.
Yeah,
I don't think
it was the release of Star
and they were
Wars.
sort of looking at how it became a blockbuster, and they're like, well, we kind of have a carte blanche chance here to do whatever we want, so they just started riffing on ideas, and I think Lucas had already had the idea, or something like that. But Spielberg was commenting on how he wanted to direct a 007 movie, a James Bond film. He liked that, and I get it. Like, you got nonstop action. It's that kind of story. So they got to talking on the beach.
And they did not.
Yeah.
I mean, what I've heard. I mean, there again, you hear a lot of things.
Uh-huh.
What I heard is Spielberg tried to lobby for it.
Yeah.
To get to and they wouldn't let him do it or whatever.
And he had some hits.
He had some hits, but he still wasn't Spielberg
Right.
now. Yet.
No, yeah.
Talking about letting him direct like a James Bond.
Right, because he had Jaws pretty much, and that was huge, but it wasn't quite enough, I guess.
This is before E.T. even came out.
Oh yeah. Well, even before Close Encounters of the Third Kind or Fourth Kind.
Third Kind.
Third Kind. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want the fourth kind.
No, that's a sequel, and it's not that good.
That's what's in Kingdom of Crystal Skull. Fourth dimension creatures.
The fourth kind, yeah. Once you go to the fourth kind, you've gone too far. It's over. But so they came up with the idea to do that. It was perfect. It was about this kind of smart guy. He's a professor, but he's also kind of rough and tumble being an archaeologist, which is still different than the archaeologists I know of. But like he was, yeah, I know real archaeologists. They aren't running around with pistols and whips and like stealing treasure from countries for their museums.
This inspired very many people to go to college and say, "Hey, I want to be an archaeologist."
Yes, it did. There was a
This looks
spike.
pretty cool.
There was a spike in the interest of that kind of stuff. I was a little kid thinking, I liked bones and that kind of stuff anyway, and I was a big dinosaur fan, so it just went hand in hand with where my thoughts were at that age. So they did that first movie, which still blows me away. Like, I would love to make a movie like that. I'd love to. It'd be great. But
I mean, I think all of the cast, his supporting cast or whatever around him were all good too. I mean, even his, the main, I won't say his main squeeze. The girl,
the love interest,
Carrie Allen's character was really good. She was not the typical, Indy help me,
No,
whatever
not
type
at all.
thing. She had a little bit of
Yeah,
Spitfire to her too.
character, yeah, you don't want to mess with Marion.
Kind of a Lois Lane type character, if you will.
Yeah,
too, kind of a little
who
bit.
fights more.
Yeah. And so I mean, she had that, and then you had Sala, who was played by I can't remember his name for the life of me.
It's not John Rhys Davies. It's
Similar
I gotcha.
to that name.
John Rhys Davies.
yeah,
Yeah, I was right. I was thinking it was the
John
other
Rhys
guy.
Davies.
Never mind. Yeah.
Who was a really good sidekick or whatever you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the villains were menacing. Where she had the Nazis, where they're all going to be menacing, whatever that thing. And I think the backdrop. We'll get into this later on, but the backdrop worked. The time frame, 1930s. We're not in the war yet. Before World War II. So, but the Nazis are still out there to being threatening.
And they've got a huge buildup in Africa at that time.
And Hitler's looking for different kinds of
treasure and stuff like
help
that.
him.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot, like I said, there's a lot of that kind of worked out. Which the funny thing was, I read somewhere where Steven Spielberg, after he did this black and white film,
Oh, Schindler's List.
Schindler's List, he kind of went to think back to the Indiana Jones movies or whatever. He would have portrayed the Nazis to be differently,
more human, and instead of
where they were kind of like more black and white. We're evil. We're that kind of thing.
They're very two-dimensional in
Right.
which works for that.
Right. Yeah. But he's like saying that he would have portrayed them differently. You can't.
But
it works, but
he kind of changes it in Last Crusade with the Nazis with the girl, showing
She's
that she
good and
cares.
bad.
Yeah,
She's not all that bad.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, there's some of that.
But yeah, I was gonna say that's.
What are some, looking at the first one maybe? What are the things that really work for you all in that story? What is? It's hard to pinpoint what's the best thing about it, but
I think for this movie in general is the pacing. It just you go from the beginning, it draws you in. You're like, who is this guy? Does a great job of showing you what he's good at.
Right.
And he gets out barely the last second alive. Then one of the funny scenes, he gets on the plane. There's a snake, right?
Yeah.
And he's scared of the snake, and you go, oh, this guy hates snakes.
Yeah, Jacques.
So the little nods there,
Snake.
and then it relates later to the plot, you know.
Right.
Full of snakes, you know, and he's terrified. Yeah, it's showing being a teacher, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really good at showing, like, the beginnings, like,
Right.
setting good, knowing, because we don't start, like, this guy's been doing it a while.
Right.
And we're able to believe that
And
in the
you're
first
starting them off
scenes.
in a job.
And I think that's really works well.
And it's kind of neat how they keep them kind of mysterious.
Yeah,
at
there's
first,
still a lot.
and then they have the reveal.
Yeah.
You know, which is pretty
Yeah.
neat. These movies, I think, kind of work. They kind of become interchangeable with these other kind of blockbustery kind of films, but you have these set pieces, these sequences that are just, and that's what it is. It's like, okay, we got this sequence. It's going to lead us here. It's like, you know, you want a viewer to like, I don't want to use drugs as a reference. I want it like, but they want it, you know, it's this sort of experience that they have, you know, so then, okay, you got to top that one. Where are we going after that? Where are we going after that? And then everything like connects together in the right way. It works, you know, and when I think of, especially Raiders, I think of the set pieces. I think of that opening sequence in the temple. Then I automatically go to some of the stuff in the town, and Cairo is kind of cool, but I think about the sequence where they dig the temple. That's a really neat scene. And then after that, or actually discovering the temple with the staff of Ra, or what, I forgot what it was. And then you got the truck. The after they get out of the temple, then you got the airplane sequence, which is pretty crazy.
With the big guy.
Yeah, with the big dude. And then after that, you got the truck sequence, which maybe that's my favorite bit.
Probably my favorite.
You know, and then you've got the incredible sequence at the end with the ark being opened and all that. Everything comes to a head, you know. It's still probably my favorite out of all the ones told. Maybe because it seems so new, or I don't know. I really like what they did there. It's one of those movies like, okay, I don't want it to end. I know it's got to end.
I think for this one, I like the arc
Uh-huh.
better than the Last Crusade item.
Right.
Because the Covenant arc, you know, that's such a cool thing because, you know, it really is lost, you know. And
Right.
it's just cool how they played with that. And I just thought it's a cool artifact, you know.
Right.
But yeah, definitely like the artifact a lot better.
Right. I just remember coming out, and then all the kids wanted to be Indiana Jones. There were like a flood of, like we were talking about it earlier, but there were a lot of fedoras out in my case, at the flea markets and stuff. I had a bullwhip, a few of those, just cheap flea market ones, you know, that, yeah, I hit myself
Yep,
too,
hit myself.
you know, a little bloody lip, all of that, you know, and you just sort of take it into your own kind of creative play life, you know, as a kid, which was kind of neat. So with
There's a running, or not running gag, but there was a lot of people have talked about over recent years. I've noticed that they think that the character of the Raiders is not that good because the character of Indiana Jones, it's something to do with if he hadn't done something. What was it saying? That he did everything. It was all his fault. The whole movie was his fault, or whatever type thing. But it's not. I was thinking about actually today because I was thinking about what we were going to talk about. At least one of the times is that it's like if he hadn't done this, then all this stuff wouldn't. You know, this stuff because they were digging in the wrong place initially.
Yeah.
In the for the ark in the wrong place, and he showed them the way, the right way. But if he hadn't done that, then it'd be, you know, then it's his fault the whole time. But they think about the whole movie is kind of like the way if he didn't do that, but not because they were looking for the amulet to get that to show the right way. Yeah. And if he had to go to Marion to go get it. Right. And if he hadn't gone to Marion, she would have died because her life was threatened by the Nazis who came to get that amulet from her.
Yeah, exactly.
And so she would have died if he
and
hadn't
the Nazis
showed up.
would have gotten it and they would have found it. Yeah.
Right. So
they would have eventually found it because
Yeah.
They had a lot of,
Yeah,
lot
that's
of people
just sort of
take
like-
it.
I mean, I've heard that. It's
saying
like,
it's
I
all
don't
his
believe
fault.
that.
Well, I
but
guess
it's
Indiana
like, I heard
Jones shouldn't
that.
have been an archaeologist. He should just stayed at home and been a professor and
Yeah.
just stayed there. And then
Yeah,
that'd
when
been a
the
fun
government
movie to
guys
watch,
came
yeah.
to talk to him about that, he should have just said, "Okay, no, I don't do that. I'm
In the
going back to my
movie.
class or whatever, and that's it."
That'd be weird though to rewatch
Credits.
it, but that happens, and then you're just sort of following everybody else and be like, huh.
I've heard people talk about that, and it's like I don't believe.
could
I never
almost-
felt I believe that.
Because you could almost take that same point and argue anything in any movie
Yeah.
about the choices that anyone makes, and then
Right.
it's like, yeah, those people probably don't do anything. They just
I
sit
mean-
at home and like say, no, I can't do
I
that.
think it was enough, like, what was it, The Big Bang Theory, where she argued that the whole movie was pointless because it would have ended the same way. Either way, but
that
then
might have
again,
been what
she
I
still
heard.
would have died.
Oh, yeah.
but
She would have died.
She still would have died. So,
So
he
there is
had
a
to do
difference.
This is
something.
where I
Mhm.
go to
Yeah.
someone who's arguing about this and go, it's a movie.
There is that.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. It's a movie. Just enjoy it. Stop getting complicated.
You're looking for the the illusionist.
Ghosts
Yeah.
come out and melt people's faces.
Look,
Like, come on.
it just like so that kind of. I think maybe that's what I first heard, or somebody first heard that, or they went into a YouTube video of it or whatever type thing, and I'm like, that's not. And like I said, then I was thinking about it, and that thing, the scene with him, they came to her for that amulet or whatever, and if he didn't show up, she would be dead,
Right.
Because they would have killed her, and they got the amulet from her,
Mhm.
and so he saved her. He at least saved her. He did something good in the movie or whatever
Yeah.
type thing. So that's what I was.
Yeah, no, I agree. So the first one came out in 81. The next one was 84.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which actually takes place before.
Yeah,
Raiders.
it's sort of a prequel kind
Yeah,
of. Yeah.
And I don't think anybody realized that until
No.
later on.
Yeah.
Because the timestamp they have at the beginning one
Mhm.
is before that or whatever type of thing.
Right, and yeah, but it makes sense historically if you think about it and look at the
Yeah.
happenings and do a little
Which is-
research. You can
yeah.
find out.
Can I just
okay.
say, when I first saw this one I had to go and rent it
Mhm.
because my family only owned Raiders and
Yeah.
Last Crusade, and I said,
Right.
there's a Temple of Doom? That sounds really good. And my dad was like, don't watch it, it's bad. My mom was like, yeah, it's weird and too dark. And I was like, well, now I need to see it.
Right.
I ended up renting it, watching it.
Right.
Can I just say, the first scene with the whole musical, like, what was going on? I was completely like, what? Like, what was going on, you know? But I liked,
It's just so pretty.
I did
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the scene, though, where he's with the Japanese guys with the poison.
At the
and all
table.
that.
Him,
and
him,
that,
him
yeah,
walking up, that whole scene.
That was good.
That's James Bond right there.
That was James Bond, that
He
was
even
good.
dressed like what James
Yeah.
Bond would be dressed.
So
or
that's
whatever.
really why that scene was really. That could be the real reason why we
Yeah,
see that
but I
scene
was-
as that,
yeah.
as it's our James Bond sequence.
But
Yeah.
you could just see as me, as everyone told me it was terrible. I was like, oh.
Yeah. See, I loved the movie. I get why people say that, but I absolutely love that movie. But I think a lot of it had to do with me being, I don't know, somewhere between 11 and 12,
Well,
10
this is-
or something. And
This is how I do like it better than Crystal Skull, because it doesn't even feel like a
Yeah.
part of the shit.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think if this one, it came out before Raiders, I
Mhm.
think I would have liked it. Because it would have shown me a little bit,
Right.
and I would have been like, this is interesting.
Sure.
And then Raiders comes, I would have been like, whoa, that's mind-blowing.
Right.
Because, you know, the way it goes now is mind-blowing movie big,
Mhm.
small movie with not a lot. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I feel like if I just saw them in a different order,
Right.
I would have been like, wow,
It
okay.
seems like making that. I know their own, at least Lucas's personal life was kind of in shambles when he was writing it. He'd just gone through a divorce. I think Spielberg just went through a divorce too. But there's that. So he was sort of in a dark place when he wrote it. But honestly, it was like I could tell they were kind of okay. They're kind of roller coastering this thing on. It's going to be about these sequences and stuff to cause the fun shock, like the dinner scene. Gross, whatever. It's funny as hell. I've shown that though to some kids, and they're just like look horrified. It's like this came out 20 years ago.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? You know, but
It's so racist.
it
I heard
is-
they banned that movie in India. India, I think, banned it.
I can see some of that. You
They
know,
did not show it to people.
well, also, you know, anytime you pick a point in time, like India was occupied by the British.
Mm.
They were part of the British Empire at that time, not wanting to be a part of it,
Mm.
but they were, you know.
Right.
There were that. So there's that, and that's just kind of glanced over. You got the British dudes with their troops showing up at the end.
Yeah.
You got that.
Yep.
You've got but the people, the villagers, were actually from there. There was like, I remember my dad grumbling about something like I don't know if
Did
he
your dad
liked
like
them
it?
or not.
No.
I think he liked the first one kind of, but I don't know. My dad's a complex mind. But he didn't like it because he was like, well, it's just kind of, you got all these skinny, starving people working on this film with all these, millionaires, and it's just kind of, he was looking into the reality of that situation. But honestly, movie comes to town, they're using the people there to be in it. Granted, they don't have to pay people a lot because of how it is set up there. The old villager guy could not speak any English, so how they did that scene, do y'all know?
No.
Spielberg sat right next to him, right off frame, and they had an agreement, like Spielberg would first say it, and then the guy would mimic Spielberg. Like, he didn't know the words, but he would just say the same sounds.
It made it a lot better, too, because
Yeah.
it's like he really doesn't know how to speak.
Right, and it was really, there's Spielberg
Cool.
right next to him feeding him the lines as they go, and that's how it's just funny, You think of something so, like, that we do in a class or, like, something really quick and,
It's very more supernatural to a point than Raiders was.
Yeah.
A little more like I don't want to say it's got of course it's got kids in it and they're part of the thing, so it's maybe coming toward the kid, maybe kids. But the thing about it's darker though, but it's more toward the kid. It kind of
they might have brought Short Round to give it a little light,
Yeah.
a little
Now,
levity as you go along. Because
you think? I think if you seen him like on paper, you'd be like, it's annoying.
Yeah.
But he worked really well.
He did work.
He made
well.
me. He actually helped me get through the movie because I was like, I don't like where this is going, and I liked him in his comments with Dr. Jones, like when they're doing the poker, and he's like, "You cheat, you no good."
Yeah. I mean, they.
And then he's cheating. But.
They say stay away from kids and dogs for a reason, but it works.
He
sometimes.
works. He did a good job.
He worked for that movie. The only thing about it is I didn't like the female.
A lot
Willie.
of people don't.
Yeah.
I was telling him that.
And,
Always screaming.
yeah.
Gets annoying.
That's why. That's a little bit of too much screaming, a little too much.
Right.
But she was not a adventurer. She never was an adventurer. See, Karen Allen's character had been an adventurer with her father.
Right.
That's how Indiana
Marion
Jones
wouldn't
knew
have
her,
acted
whatever.
that way, but this lady would. She's
Right.
used
She's
to that.
Could one of you
kind of
answer this
stuff.
question? I watched it. I was kind of confused.
Right.
So Indy gets his his antidote and gets
Yeah.
out. Why does she go with him? Why she doesn't even know him?
She was basically
What
was treated. I mean, I don't know. There again, that's
'Cause
good. That's a good
She
question.
You know,
was
here's
dependent on
here's
this
my-
guy, and then he thought that
Mhm.
she had betrayed him, I think, and then
They were gonna kill her,
She
too.
had
Yeah.
no
My-
other place. To
My
go.
biggest flaw with the movie is when Indy gets away and gets on the plane. She's with him, and she's
Yeah.
like,
And then the plane crashed.
and then she's complaining on the plane, and I'm like, why did you go with him?
Yeah.
Why are you on?
She could've
She's complaining
probably,
about being on this
yeah.
adventure.
You're right.
She didn't have to go on the plane. She didn't even know who he was.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
It's just one of the things.
It's just
you
one
don't
thing.
even
He
question
literally
it while
grabs
you-
her and shoves her in, and I'm
Yeah.
there thinking.
Watch it. I didn't even question.
That's why I didn't really like her character as well, because she's complaining. I'm like, you don't have to be here.
Uh-huh.
And then when she's disrespectful to the Indians,
Yeah,
she's
you
like
kinda
not eating the
cringing a
food,
little bit,
and I'm
yeah,
like,
it's-
why did you come then?
Right.
And he didn't even know her, which is
Yeah.
again, that's why I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, a lot of people don't like the Willie character. I don't have too big of a
But-
problem. I get it, the screaming and all that. But I thought,
I don't know if she was supposed to
I
be
thought it kinda
trying,
worked.
if she was trying to be a mouthpiece for the audience, maybe.
Right.
But
Sure.
Trying to be, maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying that it's true, but maybe a mouthpiece for the audience who are like, okay, this guy is, going to do his things or whatever, questioning his motivations for why you call
Right.
it Indiana or whatever
And
type
she's
thing.
pulled into it. Yeah.
She's kind of like questioning his, like, what are you, and the stuff he tells her that, though, it doesn't seem like it's the same Indiana. That's another thing too. His character is has a little slight difference to him,
Yeah.
where he's like, I can't remember now. He says why he's doing this stuff or whatever is for this or whatever. I'm like, that just doesn't sound like what he sounds like in the other movies,
Right.
where he's just for fortune and glory. That's what it is, for
Right.
fortune and glory. that doesn't sound like Indiana Jones that we just saw in the other movie,
Right.
and I see in, let's say, Last Crusade or whatever.
Yeah.
That just doesn't seem like it's the same person.
Right.
He's doing this stuff to help you know to.
Because it belongs in a museum.
Right.
Then they don't address the part that you're stealing an artifact from one country and putting it in
That's
your
another
country's
thing about
museum.
this movie that didn't work for me was
It just seemed.
the Covenant of the Ark. You know, cool thing.
Yeah.
This one's about stones.
Right.
It's just kind of like
Oh yeah, the
it's
stones.
just a
in the
stone that
village and
glows.
Stuff. Yeah.
it's like oh, and we don't really know what these stones are.
right.
It's not really. They have to do a lot more explaining on it.
Yeah.
But the Ark, everybody kind of knows what the Ark is.
Mhm.
You know, it's cool backstory on that. This it's a stone, and it's what brings them peace. You know what I
Right.
mean? That's another big issue with me. The movie is
Right.
rock.
Right.
That's the well, we'll get into it a little later on about you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, that is a problem with them with the movie.
Yeah.
The scene of where they're jumping off the plane and getting on
Yeah.
the raft and then flying off the cliff and going to the
I
raft
know.
and into the lake or whatever. Yeah, that's a little bit of a, like I said, supernatural type movie.
That's when I have
I enjoyed the sequence, but yeah, like none of that.
When I first saw it, it
wasn't.
didn't bother me when I was 11 years old. I guess
Sure.
when I saw this, didn't bother me. But then I
Yeah.
saw it later. I'm like, okay.
Because
wait.
if I haven't realized, they just get smashed.
like I have a hard time. People go, you know, they hate the fourth one because the fridge, and they go, the trilogy just doesn't do that. I'm like,
yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
wait, look at the boat.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
They did a
no,
little bit of.
yeah. No, you're right about
Like-
that. Yeah, the refrigerator's really bad though. It's like, oh god.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I mean, because he's like again, you know, like I said, I guess she's like, we'll go back to Willie, but that's you know, I think she's trying to be a mouthpiece for the audience. That's why I can see.
I think so.
That's an interesting point. I kind of agree because it's taking most audiences we're used to our air conditioned lives, buying stuff and doing that. So, you know, we're just this person here
Just didn't have to
existing
be
in
there.
modern contemporary life.
Just
We're
stay
not in
off the
jungles. We're
plane.
not digging up stuff.
Right.
We're not. What is that? That's stuff.
Like, you know, she like wakes up and she's
I mean,
like,
I'm not saying it was a
she's
good
like,
mouthpiece.
she,
I just
Right.
I think she even goes up to him. She's
Hey.
like, Mr. Sir, like doesn't even his name that.
yeah.
I do
Like,
like
wow.
the I have to say, I do like the sequence where Indy and Short Round are playing cards, and she's running around going
That's
crazy.
Yes.
but that's her worst scene though. She's screaming.
I know.
I did
know.
actually did enjoy
I
that.
did like that.
She's screaming through that whole sequence.
Because it's everything she picks up is another
Because
monster.
even Short Round, I
or
think he
something.
says something about that, and he's like, she's so
She's
loud.
loud. Yeah.
And I like her character development with the elephant.
Yeah.
I like
Yes,
that.
that was good.
You know.
Yeah, that's
that
something.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a nice touch.
I love how her name Willie is named after Steven Spielberg's dog. I think.
Oh, okay.
Short Round. I think they said, I could be wrong, was somebody, a producer in TP was their dog,
Ah,
and then Indy was George Lucas's dog.
that's
But
right.
they made a joke how they're all dog names.
That's
I
neat.
thought that was funny though.
Okay, I didn't know. Oh, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. And then they make fun of that in the third one.
Yes,
Where it's like,
that's so funny.
yeah.
They bring it back.
Uh-huh.
Named after the dog.
right.
But the villain, going back to you, like you just said about the Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The villain is just is not much
Yeah.
to the villain. There's not depth, or there's not much.
He,
done a lot.
the villain
I
comes
think
out of kind of nowhere in this movie.
Yeah.
In a way, I thought the villain was going to be the first guy when he walks up and the guy introduces
Who
himself.
sort of turned, but the villain he stays hidden underneath.
Yeah, the guy with the
you know.
glasses, you know what I'm talking about? Forget
Yeah.
his name. I was like, oh, he's probably gonna be the villain, have like this big plan. He kind of disappears, and then this other guy with the hat, and he's like,
Yeah.
oh, you know. I was like, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
And
I
it's
do
just
like that Kali Ma sequence when you first see it. I remember being a kid and like, holy.
Oh, when he gets the heart.
When he first-
Yeah, yeah.
It
and
made
then
me-
that giant like fire pit that they lower.
Yeah.
and then
Watching it like
and all that,
16,
was
I
like,
actually was like, I covered my heart because
yeah,
it made me
you
feel
like
awful.
the fingers are
They
going
did a good
in,
job
you
in
wanna
that.
Stop.
But again,
Everybody does.
I was
yeah.
like, what is this indie movie?
Uh-huh.
But, yeah, I mean, there's some things, good things. I mean, there's the good
Yeah,
things.
there's
about
enough
it.
good
It's
things
good,
that,
good
you
and
know.
bad. You know, it's
Right. I
It's not a bad sequel.
it's not unwatchable. It's not.
It's
unwatchable.
not a bad
It's
sequel.
Like, let's skip it and
It's
go to the
just-
next one or whatever.
And there's-
I'm just not a fan of it.
some of those things, like when you're a kid, you're not supposed to hear like the word shit, for instance.
Yeah.
When he says that on the bridge, I was just like, yeah, I don't know why.
Okay, I need to put that.
Now, getting to
It's just
that,
like I'm hearing something I'm not supposed to
the
hear.
third act, the whole last act, that's an indie movie.
Okay.
The carts,
When
fighting
they
the
take
guys,
they
releasing
take
the kids,
mine, the carts,
carts,
the cart
getting to the
scene
bridge,
is-
chopping the bridge, fighting the bridge.
Yeah.
That was an indie movie. I said to
Yeah.
myself, I would buy this movie and just fast forward to the end.
to that part.
And I'm like
Yeah.
on it. I
The
remember
last-
watching it
yeah,
first
the
time. I was like,
Mhm.
Third
oh.
act, yeah.
And then that happened. I went,
yeah.
you know, and I was
mean,
like,
it's
that is
stride
what I
where
wanted.
that's when it, you know,
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
just
it's
wanted that throughout the
interesting
whole
movie.
thing.
They
but-
make like Indy himself gets caught under the Kalima spell, which is kind of
Which is-
interesting.
Yeah. See, I wish
You
he
know?
didn't though, because Indy knows his stuff, and I wish he kind of would have figured a way to get out of it.
Right.
Because he's smart like that.
But
But
all it takes to get him out of it
Fire?
though is some fire that he.
Yeah,
I
that was
know,
kinda
it's
lazy.
so any dude could trip with a torch. And
Yeah,
like, oh,
that was-
what am I
that was-
doing here?
I was hoping Indy would have fought it, and then instead, imagine
Right.
it was like this: Indy, is in the room, then you don't see what happens. He comes out, and you think, oh, it got him, but he's just pretending because
Right.
he was able to fight it,
Sure.
and he breaks out. That I
Sure.
feel would have been better because then you're like, oh yeah, see, Indy's tough enough. He
Sure.
knows how to get out of these
But they
situations.
went the other route.
We went the other
with
route.
the
Fucking-
short round saving him and stuff like that.
But yeah.
How did you like the?
Yeah.
I've heard much.
Oh, yeah, go ahead,
you
Kat.
Yeah,
had-
yeah,
sorry.
And then you're all looking at me. Temple of Doom is still my favorite.
Sweet.
Okay.
But I
There's a lot
think
of
that's
people's
because
favorites,
I
actually.
watched it first, and
See?
I did see it
That
as the
makes
first
sense.
movie.
Yeah.
So the second half is like, yes, this is how it's gonna be forever.
Yeah.
And then it was how it was forever, and so it was the beginning for me. And then
Ah.
everything that came after was like, that's the normal.
I know a lot of people
Right.
who liked who
See,
their favorite. Is
I think
Temple
I'd be
of
with you if I saw it first. I wish I could go back in time now.
Yeah, because it's a neat movie. It's,
I do-
it still had all these
New-
things
yeah.
no one's seen before. Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
really cool to have this colorful thing happen first, and I was like, there's
Yeah.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah. It's a production. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Done. Yeah. It's pretty neat.
I'll say Temple of Doom has in my opinion, the coolest poster. I think it has a lot of. When you look at it, it has
Yeah.
if you're gonna hang it on the wall,
Oh yeah.
it has the pretty colors. It has the
Is
blue.
that- is
Go ahead and
that
check it
what
out
you're
real
talking
quick.
about? The picture right there.
That's-
right there.
That's Raiders.
That's Raiders.
Go ahead and look at Temple
Oh,
real
duh,
quick.
I'm seeing that.
Look at
There
Temple.
it is. Oh yeah. It's
That's a
got
pretty.
the-
Yeah.
Like you hang that on the wall, it looks good. And I always
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
man, I wish I'd liked this movie. So
I like the first one, but there's the one that's got the pillars on the side with snakes wrapped around it and stuff.
Yeah, there's a
that I
better
like
one.
little better.
Way better
yeah,
one.
yeah. And Last Crusade, I mean, it's nice.
I'm
but
not
it's
a
just
fan of
kinda
it, though,
boring.
because it's
like
so-
a book.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it
looks like a
matches the
book,
theme, but yeah, it's just
Yeah.
I like different colors in it. But
Mm-hmm.
that's just my thing. That's one thing I do like.
You want to go to the Last Crusade now, or do you want to?
Yeah,
Or-
just a little bit about that ending, just kind of funny, all practical effects. But do y'all know how they did the dummies, the mannequins they pushed off the bridge? You know what
Just-
they used?
Would they use?
They built some cheap mannequins, but they had little motors inside that could spin their arms around. So that's why they look like this when they're falling. But what do you do at that time? And it's so small, it didn't matter,
That's-
and all that.
You
yeah.
can get away with those. I feel like if they did that in the fourth movie, I'd still be okay with it. Because the way these movies are and the way they can get away with it is that's how it feels in those movies.
Yeah.
That's the vibe you get. And I think that's why it
I
works.
would have said, okay, that kill me. I wouldn't even go around the bridge. I wouldn't even go to the middle of the bridge.
Yeah, I saw
I would have
the-
just
yeah,
not.
no.
Okay, I'm not even
No.
going
Behind
there.
the scenes,
I have a bad thing with
I was
heights.
watching
sometimes.
the documentary. That cliff. I thought they used a real cliff. But they used a fake cliff for
Huh.
when the bridge is hanging.
Oh,
They
yeah.
built that, and I thought that was
Mhm.
cool. But I really thought they were doing all real practical, and like right there and then. But
Right.
I mean, it's kind of funny when he's like telling. He tells Short Round that he's going to cut the bridge, and I'm not sure.
Hang on.
Yeah.
He tells him in his
Oh.
language.
She does have a
I
good
don't
part
wanna,
where she
you know,
goes-
'cause I don't
she
know what
goes-
Short Round.
she
Yeah.
goes like, what
Thing
she
is, but-
says like, oh, Indy,
Yeah.
no, like that was funny.
But
And then
then,
just oh my god.
And then Indy's like,
Yeah.
what's the bad
We're
guy?
gonna go for a
What's
ride.
the hell guy's name?
Something Muron.
He said, "You'll
or
see-"
whatever.
He said,
Molaron?
You can see
Molaran?
Moron
Yes.
in hell.
Yeah.
No, what are you doing?
No. Yeah.
Like, I love all those parts.
Oh yeah. And then you see the cutaways of the alligator or crocodiles spinning in the
Yeah.
water.
They're just eating clothes.
Yeah, it's just cloth.
Yeah.
They must have put some kind of scent that they liked
Yeah.
in it.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, like
That's
that.
why he was rolling, I
All you
bet
didn't
you.
see is
Yeah.
the sign that said, "Don't feed the animals."
Yeah, so pretty cool. And it ends at the village. That's right. The little
Yeah.
It ends good.
storybook.
It ends
yeah,
good.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Kids come running in and
Right.
save the village, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I liked that I got to see that in the theater as a kid. Like it was just, it's one of those. I think when you're young, especially, you go see a movie and you come out real energized or
Yeah.
something. You saw
Oh, yeah.
just something like
Yeah.
wow, and you run around like a little crazy person for.
Yeah.
a
You
few
just want to be
weeks.
that.
Yeah,
character.
yeah,
I questioned that later on. I really liked it as a kid. When I was 11 years old, I really liked it.
yeah.
But after when I got a little older, I was just like, some parts kind of bothered me.
Me too.
That's,
Yeah.
That's, But for the most part, it's, it was a good movie.
Right. It could fall in line, some of the things like, you had, like with the first movie, just Nazis painted them all bad, but then in the reality is, well, they're humans like everybody else, and then it's sort of, which kind of would, but then if you had these humanistic Nazis in the first one, would it have worked? No.
Yeah.
It doesn't even work. Does humanistic and Nazi can even exist? It's the same kind of thing. Anyway, so they might have had the same kind of issues with getting into the historical implications in Temple of Doom, like the Thuggies and all those groups. Well, yeah, there were real groups there, but what are you saying about them? Is that necessarily true or not?
Yeah.
It's sort of this very Western colonial look at the world, which could be,
I will say,
had been problematic.
Temple of
for some
Doom,
people.
I'm glad it was made because it gave us the PG-13 rating,
Right.
Yeah.
which
It
is
was
a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
So at least we could say that it gave us something good.
Right. I wonder if Raiders would have been just hit with PG-13, or would they have gotten an R for the blood? I wonder.
I think it would have been R though.
The face meltdown.
I think the
love that
face-
sequence.
I mean,
yeah.
Then
it's hard to say.
I would have been scared as a young kid. I
I
was
don't know
not
what they
brave.
were looking at as much as radar. I know what they look at when radar now, but as much as back then, I'm not sure what they looked at as.
And
radar.
violence doesn't seem to be a thing even now.
Now violence is not even an issue. It's
No.
it's the nudity.
Yeah, that's it.
That's pretty much it. And,
You see somebody
You-
getting
you can
cut,
s- yeah.
cleaved in half, no problem. Oh, you see somebody's naughty
PG-13.
parts. Oh, you're going to hell. You're going to burst into flames. Oh, God. Well, he did. All right. Last Crusade. I love the opening. They totally did something totally different. And
yeah. Well, I mean, again, they're jumping into an adventure type thing too, where he was already.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, both all movies they were kind of like he's
Already in something.
Yeah, he's already
Yeah.
in something, middle of something.
Mm-hmm.
There's already a
whatever.
short story,
Right.
which is a great way. I think it's a great way to start off your film.
Yeah.
Just already have a story
it works
playing
all
out.
on its own. It could be a short film.
Gets you involved.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, because I recently watched it like 2 days ago, and I'll say that it did a great job of explaining all the things that you wondered. Like the scar, why he's afraid of snakes,
Right.
where he gets his hat.
Right.
It all shows everything you were wondering.
All those
And it
little
does a
things,
great
yeah.
job of doing it where you're like, oh, yeah, I can see how that
Right.
happened.
And so he was influenced by a guy who, well, he was obviously influenced by his dad, but he was actually influenced by this other dude.
This
That
other
looked
dude.
kind of like
Looked
him.
like him, which was cool.
And
And
he modeled himself after.
I loved how
him.
he
Yeah.
respected the kid too, and he he's like, I forget what he says, but he just gives him the hat. And I like the idea that
Like if we didn't know Harrison Ford, that guy could have been
Yeah.
Indiana Jones.
He said, I think he says, "You got guts, kid." He said,
Yeah.
You didn't win today, but doesn't mean something about you didn't win today, but at least that doesn't mean you have to like it or whatever. Something.
Yeah,
Something.
something.
to
I
that
want to
effect.
say they used
That's been a while.
Harrison's stunt double for that role.
Really?
I could be wrong. Maybe they
I
just
mean,
got
I remember
another
watching it. I
actor,
said, he could be Indiana Jones, and I'd be
Yeah.
okay with it because it just kind of had that
Yeah.
look.
Yeah, I'm not.
But yeah,
But,
just training sequence was really cool.
yeah.
I like the zoo idea
yeah.
with that. That was
yeah.
so convenient.
Falls into the pit of snakes.
I could see them riding there going, how do we get him in snakes? With a
At first, he's
whip?"
not scared of snakes at all.
Yeah.
In the caves, it was just
What are you
snake,
doing?
whatever.
It's a snake.
They're like, oh,
yeah.
I mean, that would make me.
Just a
That's
snake.
enough to convince me. That would get me.
But then they're all like, "Oh
Yeah.
God!"
Like the python. I was like,
Yeah.
I think when I watched that young, I think that's what made me kind of respect snakes even more.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they got my respect from over here. They stay
Well, I mean,
with
you
me.
kind of also introduced to the relationship with his father, even in a very short scene.
Yeah.
It's a small, very short scene, but
Mm-hmm.
you kind of introduced the relationship he has with his father, where his father says, "Stop," he's
Count.
Count,
And he's like tells him to count in
and
Greek.
yeah,
Like, and
in
it's
Greek.
like,
I can't
oh,
remember
so
the-
he's got all these
Right.
disciplines for him.
So
Yeah.
how maybe standoffish he is to his son or whatever type of thing, and his son's trying to tell him something, but he's like,
And that continues on through into adulthood.
Yeah.
That problem, that
Yeah.
issue. And then they finally come to it, and it's like they really love each other, but it took
Yeah.
a while to kind of
Right.
get there. Yeah. It was like they waited till now to actually talk.
Right.
Yeah.
And, there's a difference. I mean, there's a friction between the two of them because of the mother. The mother
yeah.
had died or whatever.
Also, shared love
were-
interest later on.
Yeah. the mother had died, and
Love that part.
and apparently they separated instead of coming together, but from her death they separated from her death or whatever type thing. And so, I mean that's where I got clicked on that too because it because as I said, it is a lonely place of time of growing up for you too. When he tells them that for you, I love that scene between the two of them when they're talking about. The funny thing was they dropped that right in the middle of the movie where everything's going on between them, but they actually still be able to drop that scene of them. Just basically, you're introduced to what been wrong between them for years or whatever. And it's not like it works. It's not like, come on, the Nazis are after you. What are you going on with this stupid scene and everything?
It doesn't feel like what I can't stand in movies is when you're hit with a whole bunch of exposition,
right?
And you're being hit with a whole bunch of exposition, and none of it really matters.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of. I mean, the funny thing about it is, I'm not gonna say. I'm not going to talk about it on the podcast, but I mean, a lot of guys who have the relationship with their fathers can be, have this, and I think that's why a lot of guys are related to this movie more than maybe even the other ones, or whatever type of thing.
I didn't think about that, but I think you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad died when I was 21. I had so much I hadn't had a chance to talk about. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was, and even though Sean Connery is not that much older than Harrison Ford is,
somehow it works.
But it worked anyway.
I know.
And he's too young to be his father.
They gave him some old man clothes, which kind of helped.
I mean,
I love his little hat.
Nobody questioned. Nobody was saying afterwards, "Well, he is little,
everybody
young to be his
believed
father."
it. Yeah.
Played a good old man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting how because. Yeah, I'm just saying it's really good. Of course, the Nazis were back, and they were after another artifact or whatever.
I can say I think the reason they did Nazis again was Raiders was such a great movie. Temple probably had a lot of people talking and I think they just wanted to do the same formula again, and just do a little different. But for me, it's okay. It works.
Yeah.
If you can tell me a good story, I don't care.
And you're looking at the time period. I mean, it worked too. They were kind of the bad guys of the area.
Yeah.
The actual war happening. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think that's kind of what they said. All right, let's just go back to what we're used to doing.
I like how they'll take little historical nuances too in that movie and wrap in it. Like I love it when they're in Berlin and there's the book burning going on. And Hitler signs the book. Hitler had the book that they're looking for in his hands. Yeah, signs it, hands it to him. Yeah.
And,
whoever thought of that, man, deserves an Oscar itself.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's really.
It's one of the.
It's like
whoever was it Lucas that wrote the whole thing, or is it Obalajo writer?
He's credited as the screenwriter.
Whoever wrote that though is a genius thinking about how that tied in. That was.
Okay, the screenplay is Jeffrey Boehm. Let's check it out here. George Lucas story. A lot of people had their hands in the story, but screenplay goes to Jeffrey Boehm. What'd be interesting is I wish they would break down in IMDb like we were talking about like writers' credits on screenplays. Mm-hmm. How does that work out? How does the writer? How do they get that?
Right.
What if this other person, like we were talking about, wrote it all, gave it to them, they rewrote it again? So where do you fall in line as the credit? I hate that because
I want to give credit to the who thought of it.
Right. Well, story by kind of gives you that easy kind of angle. Now, I believe Raiders was written.
We'll see.
I want to see here again we got Lawrence Kasdan as the screenplay.
Quick info on this I just learned: they're making Indiana Jones 5.
Yeah. And
his son is writing
Kasdan's
the story.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really cool. I think
that could be cool. Yeah.
But.
So you can't really even, Lucas always gets the blame as the writer on these, but
yeah, he does.
I think
he's probably more like
parts of them.
Starts it. He's probably like how I do it, an idea sequence. How do we get this, and then sometimes.
And I know he likes to write longhand first in a legal thing, which is kind of cool. You have a lot of room on that, and make notes and all that kind of stuff,
Just going back to Last Crusade, but they. I thought it was an interesting sequence. You just said he went to Berlin and he signed it or whatever type thing. It was kind of an interesting line that Indy says to the girl. I say girl. I can't remember her name. I don't want to use girl, but I mean I just said to the spy who. She says, "Why did you come here for the book? Or whatever. You didn't. You already knew where you need to go, or whatever." And he said, "I didn't want to burn. I didn't want it burned or whatever." And I love that line or whatever type thing. And of course, that was sarcastic and whatever. But
it worked well with.
You know,
you'd think she'd buy it.
Yeah. And they needed the book for the traps or whatever type thing, like Rome. And but I liked her character too. She wasn't, again, the damsel in distress, but she wasn't the good girl either.
She was going more for the power, the material possession kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I think they changed but I mean, actually, each movie, each character changed, how they did the female.
What's interesting, even Indiana Jones, you see his flaws, because he's trying to get it after she goes. He's going to try and get it. He can get it, but he has to be talked out of that as well. Mm. Yeah, it would be hard. You got the answer.
But the way they said it, that's what it kind of is. Because the way the knight was telling him, if the cup went past a certain point, it would lose its power. Right. So even if they kept the thing, it would lose its power.
Exactly.
I don't know why they were still grabbing for it. You know what I'm saying?
It's an interesting.
I could believe Indy though, because he just loves artifacts. He wants,
true.
Things.
Artifacts. Yeah.
Her maybe she was kind of the same a little bit. She was liked artifacts, but you're right.
Right.
But I wanted to ask you guys this: when that scene where he has to pick a cup.
Mm-hmm.
Before they showed the one it was, did you already pick which one you thought it was going to be?
You go through it. I definitely wouldn't. There were so many gaudy, bejeweled cups. I was thinking, well, it's got to be something that's probably stands out, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either one way or another.
And then they picked the most, which is like, that would be a cup from back in biblical
I just
times.
think, just from the Bible and all that, knowing Jesus wouldn't have the gold one,
No.
It would be the simple one.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and also, did she trick him? Or did she really pick it not knowing?
She tricked him.
She tricked him. Okay.
Yeah,
Me and my friend were arguing because I said she tricked him, but you could easily say maybe she just didn't know because of the way she plays it. But she tricked him, right?
I believe she tricked him.
Yeah, and I don't know if she knew the actual one, but I knew.
Yeah.
Figured chances are,
Okay, cool.
Yeah, go kill yourself.
Because I saw, I was like, she tricked him.
Because he was just complicating the matters. He would have been a problem later on had they gotten it anyway.
Right.
And if the Nazis had known you're not supposed to move it, I think they would have just built a base over it.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's another thing too, is that she was German, but she was, I don't think she was, well,
Austrian.
Austrian.
I think she was Austrian.
Austrian, and she was not, fully into what they believed in or whatever.
Right.
I think she just wanted the, like you said, the artifact. She was into artifacts, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She just wanted the artifact.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy Donovan is I think the actor might be British, but I'm not sure about it. But he was American.
Right.
His character was American or whatever type, and he was allying himself with the, with evil, if you will,
right.
thing. So it was a very shady, thing.
Yeah, and if you study, like especially looking at corporations like IBM for one, well, IBM made the spy machine that the Germans were using in World War II. An American company did and sold it to the Germans. They knew how to beat it, but it's just weird. They get a pass. You find out stuff like even it's conspiracy. Actually, it's not. It's like it's funny. Like George Bush fought in World War II against the Axis, but his dad was part of a company that was related to business interests in Germany. So it's just kind of confusing. Pope John.
Well, not all Germans too were.
And that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. Well, like her character, for instance, you have that kind of, well, she didn't get killed for whatever reason. She was allowed to live in Germany. There's not only kind of one choice to kind of fall under, who's your ruler. And so you sort of have that thing to contend with.
But I think, going back to the father and son thing,
Yeah.
I think the Sean, they did it very well. They did a, I don't know what I was saying, but anyway, yeah, the part where they're talking or whatever in the balloon.
Oh, their chemistry's perfect.
Yeah, they couldn't. I think that's why. I mean, like I said, I think I fight for it because I like that part with the two of them together.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite parts with them when they get in the plane and he goes, "Well, they got us," because he shot the tail.
Yeah.
That's something I would have done. Just thinking, where's the situation you've been with your friends and you did something stupid and your friend didn't know and you just said, "Oh, they got us," and that's something I just thought very relatable, and I thought that was so funny.
Right.
They
That
got
whole
us.
sequence was good. I mean, some of it's like that could never happen. Like the airplane.
He goes right by him. He
alongside
goes, and they're like,
them.
"It's so dumb, but it's good."
It works.
It works.
It needed to happen for that, But the little jokes kind of keep you going. I'd say maybe. What do y'all think? Is it safe to say like the strongest aspect about the third movie is that relationship?
It's the relationship. I think if it had failed, that part would have failed. The movie wouldn't work as good.
The other two
Probably
seem
wouldn't
to
be
be more about the action sequences.
Yeah.
And stuff. I really love. I think, does perfection exist? I don't know, but Raiders is kind of, for me, kind of there as far as like a movie that hits on everything the right way.
Third
I
one's
don't know.
pretty much. I think it's really made for the fans, the diehard fans,
Right.
because it shows you Indy's life.
Right.
It shows you who he
And it
is,
gives you answers
what
to
he
all
is,
those little questions.
his dad. And I think it's really, and they bring back all the favorites that people liked
Right.
in Raiders. I really think it was for fans. Like, they're like,
They
here you
tried
guys
doing
go.
that in Crystal Skull, but
I think it was almost trying to be a swan song to a point.
Yeah.
Because they rode off in the sunset at the end.
Yep.
Yeah. It
So-
feels like that's the end of the thing.
Yeah.
You know?
So I think they had every intention of not coming back to this
Right.
because I think maybe even though and it went for a while before they even got to anything
Oh yeah.
else.
And you think of all the stuff they made based on that franchise, like those movies, even the fourth one, but then the TV series. Each episode is almost a movie. Of Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and they're big, epic scale. You got World War I going on. You've got a lot of stuff. Pretty interesting. So I guess here in the last 10 or so minutes that we have today, I know it's we're used to like 2-hour runs, but trying to keep it a little tighter this time. We can talk about our impressions of Crystal Skull. So
I can tell you, because when it came out in 2008, I was 10.
Right.
I didn't get to see it in theaters because my family just didn't really go to the movies.
Right.
So I ended up renting it.
Sure.
And I did like it when I was 10.
Right.
I did like it, and I thought, why is all the hate? But I remember my young self, I hated the end. I even said to myself, well, that's stupid. That's
Right.
weird. That's not indie. But I thought, it's still a good movie.
Sure.
Coming back to it now, rewatching it, I can see now why people hate it. It doesn't feel like the other ones.
Right.
But the beginning scene is a good scene.
My favorite thing though is the hat going across, and the son goes to pick it up, and is like, no, not yet.
Yeah.
You can't have it.
Yeah, no, that stuff was good. I want to
The
actually.
entire world just screamed yes.
I've
Thank
only
you.
seen it one time. I feel like I owe it to the film gods to watch it one more time,
Just give it a minute.
just to see. There's just parts of it I really don't like. I don't like the stuff in the jungle. I don't like the, the just when it gets really CGI. Like, I don't even mind the sequence on the college campus because it's real objects and things. I can kind of buy it.
So that's Indiana Jones. That, like you just saying, it's Indiana Jones scene. That scene's, I think, an Indiana Jones type scene.
Me watching it recently, I could say the beginning shot where he's in the warehouse, I think that's a great idea. I like that. When he puts his hat. It's good. The bike scene is good, because I love it when the bike rolls under the table, pushes the kid, and the kid's like, asks him a question.
Right.
Still showing he's a teacher.
Yeah.
But then once Shia LaBeouf starts doing his thing, it kind of just doesn't work.
Yeah. And I
It
hate to
just
attack an actor. It just seems like ill use
No, I
of
like
the
him
character.
I like
you
him.
know?
I'm probably the right one to say, but I like him in
It was more
Transformers.
the character than the way he chose to play it.
Right. Right. Because I get why he was chosen. He looks a little bit like, Spielberg.
I think it's him being
Honestly.
a greaser. It doesn't work as a greaser. He's
No.
a tough guy.
No.
Because
No.
if he just played kind of how he is in the first Transformers, just this kid that's kind of
normal.
normal, I think it would have been funny because he's funny in that movie. He's pretty good.
Right.
So
And he would have had traits of his dad that could come
Yeah.
out. Like they played that okay, But then when it got to be like Miriam was such a strong character in the first movie, and then they brought her here and she just doesn't do anything.
Well, they bring in.
She has some one-liners.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff thrown in and all this stuff together, and it's just like, where did this person come from? What?
Right.
It seemed like, God, what's his name? I think the older man that was friends of theirs or whatever, and it was friends of Indy's too, and I can't remember the older man that was kind of crazy or whatever type thing, and God, he's a famous actor too, and I can't get his name.
Yeah.
John Hurt. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
John Hurt.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he passed away.
Yeah, that's right.
But he's a good actor.
Yeah.
And they just wasted him.
Yes,
And
they
it's just-
did.
And he was a character that you thought, well, wait a minute. Was he in Raiders of the Lost Ark, or was he in? Because they acted like he had,
Been
that
there.
we like the audience had known, we should know him.
Right. It's just
Right.
the adventures we haven't seen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it seemed like they just threw him in there just to, I don't know why. That's the thing about it.
That's
I don't know
interesting. It got convoluted with characters
Yeah.
there when they're on the adventure and stuff, and it was hard to. I don't have a clear grasp on who's who. I mean, it's been a while since I watched it. Raiders, though, I got everybody. It was like that thing about simplicity and story. There's something about how that story was laid out that made it easy. Maybe it was because I was a kid and I was infatuated with that movie and, studied it basically for years. But
Well, yeah, Indiana Jones works better as we've talked about this before. As a backdrop, the backdrop of it works better in the 30s or 40s type time frame.
right.
This is the 50s. It just
It's a
doesn't
little-
work.
yeah.
It just doesn't work with the aesthetic of. I mean, it wouldn't probably work in 60s or 70s either. But I'm just
Right.
saying that it just doesn't. It like the other three were so much ingrained in 30s, 40s type time frame or whatever type thing, and so it was just didn't work as
Right, but they had to move up the story in time because of the age of the
yeah.
actors.
I will say
and
though,
all that
I
kind of
do,
stuff, yeah.
even though they didn't do a good, the villains weren't all that great. The Russians was a good villain choice because the Cold War. That sounds cool.
Yeah, that
and
made
if they
sense
just had a
to
little
me.
work with it,
Yeah.
it was cool.
Yeah.
I think
'Cause-
they went too sci-fi with it. I think at the
Yeah.
end,
Yes.
if they had just
Two
grounded
movies. It's
it,
like two movies
if
in
they
a
had
way.
grounded a little bit, Russians are fine to use as your villains and stuff like that. Maybe not the refrigerator. Yeah, think of something else to do there.
See, I don't
I
mind
don't
it as
mind
much.
though. We did test a bunch of nukes out in
Yeah.
the desert.
Don't
That
mind
stuff
it
was
as much.
going on. That's
Right.
okay. But it just, I've got some. Man, it just turns into
they're
the
trying-
cartoon bits of that movie just bother the crap out of me.
They try to bring him in. I mean, showing him basically with the nuclear explosion, him, introducing him into the nuclear age. I guess basically,
Sure.
and it just. I mean, I don't know. It just, like I said, to me, it just doesn't work to me anyway. But that's just that's my thing as much
Right.
as like the backdrop or whatever type of thing. It just like I don't think it would work in the 60s or 70s or whatever the time frame they want
Yeah,
to do
it
it.
just doesn't seem
It
good
just,
times. Like the 50s was beginning this extreme modernization after World War II,
Also, too, like you just said, the CGI stuff, it didn't feel lived in. No place felt lived in.
No.
Yeah.
Everything seemed to be like CGI,
Hyper
backdrop,
sterile.
or whatever type thing, and stuff like that, where it's just like indie. You look at Raiders and look at Temple of Doom, and they're crawling through these mine shafts, all
It's
this other
visceral,
stuff.
it's real.
People getting dirty, type thing.
Yes.
And there's dirt on him, and
Because
there's
in the
dirt on other
jungle,
people.
I know they shot some of that in a real place, but it's just
Yeah,
like a
it's
cartoon jungle going by.
Yeah, it
Doesn't
still
work.
doesn't look.
And the
it still
bugs.
Oh, the worst part of that
What you
jungle
gonna
sequence
do?
is the car jumping off and then landing on the big tree, and then
Yeah.
slowly puts them into the water. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
I remember I was like, what? And
Yeah.
they try above swinging with the monkeys.
Oh, Holly.
Yeah.
I was like, what's going on? And then the monkeys attack the Russians.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, why would the monkeys want to fight?
No.
That doesn't make sense. The monkeys are now with Shia LaBeouf. Did he talk to them?
It's
Hey, I
because
need
they're
you guys
with the
help.
American side.
Oh. Thanks. All right, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I do like the ant scene, though. I do like that.
I do, but they look fake.
They look
like
fake.
paintings of ants.
The only part I don't
birds.
like is when they climb and try to grab her when she's hanging. That's a little
Right.
overdone. But
Right.
the ants surrounding and the thing falls and they're around them. I
Sure.
think that was cool. I was
Yeah.
like, I really do like that.
That's all right.
So I can be the one that says I like that. I guess.
I think they were trying to also too the bike scene at the beginning or the earlier in the movie with him they going around the university on his bike or whatever running from the bad guys, and there were scenes little parts where he was like Shia LaBeouf's character was going and laughing at whatever the bad guys would get messed up or whatever type thing, and he kind of laughed at him and look at Indiana he like have a strong
they're
look
doing
on
the
his
same
face.
thing
They were
that
doing
they did
what
in
they were
the-
doing in the Indiana Last Crusade,
where
when
they're on the bikes, the motorcycles.
the
Indiana
motorcycle,
like makes the one flip over. He's like,
Yeah.
ha, ha, and his
Yeah.
dad's like,
and with a stern look on his face the whole time. So it was like, hey, look at that! What I just did, and he's like looking at him like the whole time, going, yeah, what? And looking at his watch or
I
whatever.
do love that. I do remember because I watched it. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
his dad's like, that's
you
not
just
funny.
hurt somebody.
They
Yeah, it's
tried
not
to-
funny. That's very good.
They were trying to do that with that bike scene and the Crystal Skull thing too, but it just didn't work.
No. And Indiana would have been like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it'd been interesting if they brought traits of his dad, Indiana's dad, and had him in Shia LaBeouf.
No, I wish
or
they didn't
something
kill
like that.
his
I don't
character off in that
know.
movie
There's a lot of what ifs.
because
Yeah.
I would have liked to just seen a cameo of him or something.
Right.
Because he's not dead, so use him. You know.
but see,
He doesn't have the
I know.
full actor, like
Yeah.
the full. I mean,
Well, see,
cameo.
like you just said about Last Crusade, they brought all these people back that we knew, the fans knew, whatever from Raiders of the
Sure.
Lost Ark, whatever type thing.
Yeah.
And so we knew them. We said, okay, yeah, that's that
Right.
guy. Well, yeah, that's that guy. Whatever, I knew I remember him. But then they, like I said, again, John Hurt's character in Crystal Skull almost like seemed like they were trying to do that, and like it wasn't a character in the movies at all.
And no one's like, who's that?
Who's that?
Yeah.
And so.
I heard they're gonna probably bring back Sulla in the new one.
Yeah.
And stuff. I could see that.
See,
but,
I'm worried about this. That's another thing too.
See,
Harrison
I can
Ford
make you
is
feel a
not
little
a
better.
young man anymore.
No,
I went and
he's not.
researched. Now this movie, obviously, he's gonna be like 79, which is a little hard. But I feel like it's gonna be like a story that they could go with. You've seen Logan.
Yeah.
I feel like if they go some route like that, where it's not a lot of, it can have a lot of action, but it's more about Indy being old
A
and
personal piece.
personal
of him.
piece, and it's kind of sad, but it's
I
gonna
could
be
get- I
a
could see
good
that.
movie.
Yeah.
I could give
Then
it
you
that.
could, you could just be like, yeah, it could
Yeah.
work, and then have some characters come in, and I wouldn't even have him pass the mantle down. I think I would
Right.
just have him. He's retired now. He's got a good run, and you almost make it kind of like, it's almost like an adventure movie, but it's more like a personal movie about
Right.
this old guy now, and he's just.
I
go
could
with
see that. I could see.
You know?
I mean, that seems like a way to go.
And it makes you almost kind of tear because Indy's
It's either
all
do
done.
that or recast the guy, but it's going to be impossible to find a Harrison
I
Ford.
think-
Though there's that one dude that should have been in Star Wars
The
who looks
guy,
perfect.
the guy that was you wanted to be Han
He's
Solo.
got Han Solo's.
Oh yeah, the
everything
guy we
going
wanted to be
on.
Han Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forget
He
his
does look
already
like a
forget his name.
young,
He did. I'll never forgive Disney on that one. He's so good. We have to show him that.
Yeah. Kat, what's your impression of Crystal Skull? I'm curious.
My impression. I watched it once, and some of it again at work, and it felt so disrespectful using the CGI.
Yeah.
Apart from the original trilogy,
Yeah.
you could have done all these practical effects. You could have done it differently,
Yeah.
but you chose not to.
I know.
And that to me is half the reason it was so bad.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, I have I didn't like
There's a
it.
charmingness to the practical effects too.
Yeah, it's off-putting. I don't want to see a cartoon jungle and.
Yeah, I'd say
You know.
also most of the
Yeah.
beginning
Oh, God.
beginning scenes for Indy
There's so much I blocked out of my mind.
are pretty. When the title pops up, they're really cool.
Yeah.
This one I didn't like, but I get why they did it with the racing. These random kids just racing. The
Oh,
Russians.
yeah.
That's kind of the beginning shot.
Yeah.
I didn't really like that because it doesn't really
Mhm.
serve it. But he did it because he made that movie. George made that movie. What's it called?
American Graffiti.
American
Yeah,
Graffiti.
yeah.
It's
Right.
that car.
Sure.
That's what they did, which I get. It's cool for directors, to do
Yeah.
that. But it just, I don't know. It just kind of felt kind of like, oh, okay,
Kind of forced in there.
forced in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you first see the Gophers hole get hit,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh no, Gophers.
Yeah. The openings of these movies are always, pretty important. Like Raiders, the
Yeah.
opening's terrific. How they slow build. I love you got the mountain in the background, but the Paramount's logo just fades
Yep.
into that mountain. It's really good. The the third one I really like because when you transition from young Indiana Jones to
The
present
hat
day,
thing.
the hat they
where
do
he's like
the,
this.
the match cut on action,
Ah.
and it's
I remember I rewatched it.
that's a really neat,
learning from film. I went,
it's a neat.
that's what that.
Yeah, that's a great transition. You remember those visual transitions, that's why they're pretty important.
Right.
Yeah. I don't remember really anything from Crystal Skull like that. I guess they did that little trick with the cars. I totally forgot about that.
The shot I do really respect and like is when the Russian slams the car door and it's the shadow of Indy.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the first
Well,
reveal.
that's
the
building
reveal
off- yeah.
is good because it plays off the other ones with the shadows.
Sure, and it's that kind of style,
So-
the 30s and 40s noir
Like
film
really, the
kinda
Crystal, it's
stuff.
just like if they rewrote it a little couple bits, I think it'd be a fantastic film.
Yeah, how do you
It has a
handle
lot of good
There's a
parts.
way you got to handle like the alien thing, but it be believable. I don't think you should show them at all.
I think you just take alien thing out, throw it,
that or
add
it's-
some other artifact, but
the
have the
only-
Russians involved.
Yeah, but the only thing involving the aliens would be carvings on the
Yeah,
wall or
exactly.
something. You don't see them. You don't
don't
see a
see
ship.
them.
You don't see.
You just get the idea. Oh, okay, so these things might be
Maybe
out there.
this place could have been a landing platform for
Yeah.
a ship at one time, but you still have that wonder.
It's
It's
like-
still real,
Maybe they left something like a weapon.
right?
Well,
That would have been cooler.
what
But
I
no
would,
big power and
No,
lights
no.
and stuff. No.
I would like could have been the character. What's his name? I don't remember the actor's name, but the one that played Mac, Ray Winston.
Yeah.
His character, who was flip flopping, double agent, super agent. I don't know what
Yeah,
he
that
was
was
doing most of the
dumb.
time.
Yeah.
That was a character that was put in there like. He's an old friend of Indy's, but we don't know him as an audience. We're
He lost me when India was like, so you're a triple agent now?
Yeah.
Like I was like, why you guys keep playing that off? That's kind of
that's
kind of
just
a
like
Yeah.
if they told of how he worked for the government during the war, World War II, helping the government, Indy and him worked for the government or whatever.
Right.
Show that. That might sound
That would've been
interesting.
a more
Doing
interesting
yeah. I
Interesting
remember
story.
watching Honest trailers. Have you guys ever
Yeah.
seen Honest trailers? They talk about they go, well, that's a way more interesting movie right there.
All of which would have been a better story than what you gave us.
Yeah,
Right.
like 30, 50
Show
missions.
that.
he said.
Oh, yeah.
It's that would be interesting to see that. Then you could bring the Nazis in and have the old Nazi bad
Sure.
guys in and everything like that. But then have a different story and
Right.
kind of basically have him do the same what he's been doing, searching for artifacts, whatever, trying to fight the Nazis off, or whatever type thing, and it can still. I mean, of course, it'd be a different story, but
Right.
it's just like that could be something.
If I was given, sort of rounded up, okay, this is kind of a neat thing to end it with. If you were given the keys to the kingdom, make your own Indiana Jones movie and that kind of stuff, you have full God power on this. You can have Harrison Ford back when he was 30 years old in this if you want to.
okay.
All that kind of stuff. You just you have that power. What kind of story would you do? Where would you go? Like I don't know what story I would do, but I do know what I would do first is go to there's a ton of source material. They wrote novels about that character. They did choose your own adventure books with him, a bunch of comic books. I had a bunch of Indiana Jones comic books, and those are pretty good. Still fighting the Nazis and stuff, but it was like one was Stonehenge and another one was, different stuff like that. So I'd probably go to like source material first because a lot of talented writers wrote a lot of stuff. You can go back into that and find at least maybe pieces of a story you could make. I don't know, maybe they did that and that. It obviously didn't work, but for me anyway. That's probably what I do. How about y'all? What would you do? How would you begin this?
You want me to go? I got to
Go
figure
for
it
it.
out.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
so I get Harrison Ford around his 30s, right?
Yeah.
The movie's it's got to be based off Atlantis. Because the games, when the games came out, there was this story, Fate of Atlantis.
Oh, yeah, I've
I
heard
just
of that.
read
Uh-huh.
the description. It's a great story. It gets you involved, really great things with it. But the villain I would change is I always thought it'd be cool if Indy was going against another version of him, kind of like a guy that's just as good as him,
Right.
but does everything the opposite.
They tried a little bit in Raiders of the Lost Ark because
Yeah.
Belloc is essentially, he's another
Yeah.
guy, but he's,
But get this, what if we
Fancy
take the
European.
guy that gave Indy his hat?
uh-huh.
He's the bad guy, maybe. Use some kind of
Ah,
twist. You
bring
hear
him
about?
back, yeah.
You bring him back, and
And
it's
he's-
almost like
He's going to be 20 years older than
yeah,
Andy.
right.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
he's like an older man,
Right.
And they're both going to Atlantis for some reason. They can't show it, or he wants to show it, or something.
right.
But something with that. So this guy knows every maybe it wouldn't work because he doesn't really know the kid that well. But you have a villain that knows every all Indy's moves. Like he knows what he's gonna do. He knows how to outsmart him.
I want to plan taking that. I want to plan
Right?
some transition with the hat because he gave Indy the hat. So there's a thing where maybe he takes the hat back.
Yeah, he takes the hat back.
or
Like
something.
I just think that would be cool.
That'd be maybe even a beginning movie, the movie. Or, I don't know.
Right,
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
he
I was
runs
thinking
back
that.
into
Yeah.
it.
Early,
Uh-huh.
Show that these guys didn't
Right.
run into each other just once.
And maybe he'll be for the rest of it. Maybe he'll just that's the scene he's in, and they
Yeah.
just tie up that little funny thing.
But I just thought, imagine if Indy like goes to throw a whip, and the guy already, he knows
He
his
bought-
whip,
he
pulls out
counter-
maybe his
yeah,
whip, or I don't know. It just you haven't seen anything like that,
he
like
pulls his whip out, and then
yeah, he does it, he
Out.
smacks it out, and he's like, I know all your moves, But that's cool idea to take the hat back.
Yeah, something like that.
But-
It gives you a place to do that transition,
And
or
I
just
would
leave-
bring back Short Round as an older kid too. Bring him back, like he
He's
needs.
a scientist
like-
now, isn't he?
He was a film director for a long
Yeah.
time, but I guess he became a scientist too.
But
yeah.
like, if it was me, I would make let's say I'd have Raiders, Last Crusade, make this one like my third one
right.
to end the trilogy, so it's a good
Mhm.
3. But I would have Short Round come back, and he's a little older, and he helps him figure it out, and it's just
Right.
kind of fun,
Short Round Story's funny. It was
Yeah.
actually his brother that was going to be cast. His brother.
Oh yeah.
But he went with his brother to the casting session, and the kid kept directing his brother on how to be. No, you got to say it like this and all this. That Spielberg's just like,
No sibling rivalry there.
that's who I need is this guy, not this. Yeah. Wow. I wonder what if they had problems after that.
When he
Maybe
got
the kid
home.
didn't want to act, and that kid obviously did. Maybe, hopefully, it ended up happy. But,
Yikes, yeah. But yeah, I think that'd be a cool story.
I don't even begin because if I've got Harrison Ford at 30, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, you have that power. You can.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you
You
want.
can choose it or not. Yeah.
Let's see, I've got Harrison Ford at his age now. Let's just say that.
Right.
Let's say I've had him now. He doesn't go on another adventure. He remembers back to another adventure, and you
okay.
cast it. I don't know who to cast. I'm not going to say who to cast, but
A lookalike who's a great actor.
yeah, and he thinks back to a past thing,
Uh-huh.
and then that's where you have adventures of Indiana Jones. It kind of ties to the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles to a point,
Sure.
but because that's how they did that. That's how they framed that.
Right.
But then you get a audience that likes this
Mm-hmm.
Indiana Jones, and
Right. I could say you
and
can almost
and
go
you can put it back
series
in,
that
you,
way.
You can put it back in 30s and 40s time
Yeah.
frame or whatever, or have him with the government, like I said, like the fighting with the
It could be during the war.
working for working for the government, and have him like be a younger Indiana Jones, and then you can have the audience. Hey, we like this Indiana Jones, and then
Right.
you can have movies continuing on with it
Yeah.
as a younger guy.
Just find somebody that's got that right recipe of charisma and
Yeah.
I almost
toughness
think it
and
would
all
be
that
fun
kind of stuff.
too that Indy runs into like some Nazis, but they have to like work together in a way, and they're
could
the
happen.
kind of the good guys with him on this one.
Right.
That could be.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that way you can say, oh, well, the Nazis aren't just better.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Like Germans,
Not
you
all
know.
black and white. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you could. It could be kind of funny
But
because
they can
Indy
help
doesn't
him
trust
take
him.
down the, it
But
could
they
be
help him.
scientists who were essentially slaves to Germany
Yeah.
instead of they're
They
Germans,
help 'em.
but they have, if they don't help them, they're going to get killed. So.
It's like Indy,
Which is how it was.
has trust issues with them,
Mhm.
and then they end up saving him maybe.
Mhm.
Oh, so many things.
You could bring in some Russians too, because
Yeah.
you got and all different kinds of
Yeah.
other agents. Yeah, you could put it anywhere. You could put it be in Berlin. You could be anywhere in the world. Maybe his job is, while he's working for the government, is to protect all these artifacts and stuff like that.
I do have one more I'd like to tell, just a real quick one.
Go for it.
If I had old Harrison Ford, like if I was directing Indiana Jones 5,
Right.
I would have it. It's in the 1960s.
Okay.
Indy's going to Japan. Japan has a lot of cool like artifacts and stuff
Sure.
that you could play with.
Yeah.
But I would have him go to Japan, and I would love it if somehow the villain in Temple of Doom, the China dude, whatever his name was.
He was from India, but Malaram.
Well, his son is now like in charge of the game, and he's the villain. So you have that connection. And Short Round again, we gotta bring Short Round back. Find Short Round in Japan or China, and they have to work together again.
Right.
Older dude, and it'd be kind of funny because he's old, and Short Round could poke fun of that a little bit.
Short Round's in his mid-20s.
And now Short Round's kind of the it's like opposite now, kind of like Kid, you know.
Okay.
It's like Short Round's kind of like the one helping.
Right.
Well, Indy's kind of struggling because he's older, but you have those two play it, and it's some story about him older.
Right.
And then you just end it like that.
You can kind of do that.
If I had the old version, the old Indy.
What would you do, Kat?
Yeah, would you?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know what my story
I
would
don't have a lot of ideas on that.
be. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the story. I just know what I would do. I was like, I know where to research.
Yeah.
And I bet I could find something great. And comic books are great because they're simple little movies worth of a story in like 24 pages. So you can kind of look through all those, maybe at least get ideas or something like that. Yeah, I'd be kind of, I'm not sure what to do because it's so much you could do, but you want to kind of pay homage to the things you really love about a story. You know, you want that to work. You know, you want to revitalize the love for this character. You know,
You have to.
or stories.
I feel like too. Well, I mean, you know, we're talking about movies, but I mean, also too. I think you have to have the thing he's looking for, the thing he has to do, or the what's the name of that thing?
MacGuffin?
MacGuffin device. Yes,
Right.
thank you. The MacGuffin device in the movie has to be something that the audience cares for too, or
Right.
I was just gonna say it.
Mhm.
Something we know already.
or knows, or understands it at least. You know, they can they can talk more about what is going on with it in the past of it or whatever type thing.
Right.
The audience kind of has at least have some sort of, I don't know.
I think
Get
that's
it
why
with it or whatever,
Crystal
like-
the Crystal Skull kind of has a hard time because nobody has an idea what that is. So you have to
No.
spend a lot of time explaining it. Like Last Crusade, you already kind of know what you've heard of it, so you
You
don't have
go
to
in
spend so much
knowing
time.
You've heard about the yeah.
But
The
you're
lost-
right. The MacGuffin is probably the biggest thing, honestly.
the Ark of the Covenant, you know.
Yeah,
The Holy Grail.
Yeah,
You know.
the Holy Grail. But see,
The
that's
rocks.
I mean, even the rocks,
the rocks are.
they're better than the skull because you're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's a rock. It's just you can kind of understand it a little bit. A skull, though, they had to explain.
Here, the thing is, those crystal skulls are cool because they're real.
Yeah.
No one knows where they came from or how that happened. That's a cool idea, but it's how you. It's the story around it, the package that goes around it that can sell it or not. Like,
I mean,
crystal skulls in and
like
of
you
itself
said,
fine.
the Lost
but-
City of Atlantis, that whole thing they did, that's something that people
Yeah.
somewhat know about. You know, they don't even have an idea about whatever.
Mhm.
But you know, just something like that, or you know, anything that maybe not everybody knows about it, but a good chunk of people know about it.
Bermuda Triangle, you know.
Like,
That'd be a
you
cool
just said
story right there
Stonehenge,
for
you said Stonehenge, you know,
that was in a comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
triangle. That's actually be
you
cool.
kind of have
Huh?
to. That's the key thing, right? I think that's where you. I
I got it.
think you may have to choose that, and then that's where you start out from the store.
What if
you did
build
this?
From that.
And then if you're good with the character, you can
Right.
have them be that character through the whole thing. Yeah.
Sorry, because I always think of stories. What if the Bermuda Triangle is where the Atlantis is located?
Could be.
It's the gateway. It opens up.
And
Boom!
it's its defense mechanism as people get
So the whole
lost
movie,
there,
you're thinking,
so no one can
oh, all
ever
right,
find
Bermuda
it.
Triangle. What's this gonna be?
You know.
Yeah.
Boom! You smack them with Atlantis.
But you don't want to be so magical with it.
No.
If you're gonna have magic, tiny bit
do
at the end.
You do it as an old city that was drained, that was flooded.
Right.
You don't do it. People lived underwater.
The only
Right.
problem with the Lance, which I mean, I think is a good idea, but the only problem with the Lance I see Hollywood doing is CGI.
It'd be so
Up the
CGI.
ass.
Yeah.
And you really
I mean-
want a nice miniature version if you see the whole.
Well, here's what you
thing
do.
Shot
Here's
right
what you do. If I
underwater.
was directing it, I'd write in the script they have to drain the water. So to get to it, because then you can't just swim underwater the whole time. So somehow the city wherever it's located, the water drains, and in the cities
Yeah.
where
there
it comes
Floats
up,
up.
or it
floats
comes
up or comes out of the water, even cooler.
comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to avoid it though being so like
Complicated for money.
this big fancy machine
Yeah.
that lifts it. It needs to look like it could be. It looks like maybe an island just coming up without any kind of machine or.
Or I mean, you could just Atlantis. Maybe it's not even underwater.
Yeah.
People just say, "Oh, we don't know where it's at. It must be underwater." I mean, they never could find the island because the island is
It's
near
an
Bermuda Triangle.
entire island and building made out of air.
Could be. Could
It's
be.
a cloud.
It could be.
Because you could play with the the Bermuda Triangle sets things off, so maybe they never could find Atlantis because it's on one of those islands.
But we found, or you could
Right?
pull in with today's technology, we're able to map all kinds of stuff. So we're seeing all these structures underneath the ocean, like remains.
Mhm.
What is the road, the highway they found, like in the Gulf of Mexico and out around the Caribbean and stuff. It's got a famous name to it, but
I didn't know about
You know,
this, but that sounds cool.
ancient stuff that was made by people, but just no one knows much about it. The fact that there are pyramids all around the earth and not just in Egypt, like there are pyramids in China. Some of the mountains in Europe are speculating that underneath were structures. You know,
South America too.
South America. Oh yeah, tons. Yeah, tons and tons and tons of those. You know, that group of people almost wiped them. They kind of wiped themselves out by overbuilding. A lot of the forest went away and stuff, and then no crops, and then they had to reduce. You know, yeah. Civilization can eat itself sometimes. I guess with that, we're here at the end of, let's see, this is Season 2, Episode 1 of the Filmmakers, P114 Filmmakers Podcast. Good first episode. It's nice to see y'all here, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.